Hey everyone! Here are 9 things you can do to prepare a laptop keyboard rig for a live show. Number 1, make sure it's plugged in. This might sound a bit silly, but I've done it before. Laptops have got batteries, and so that makes them great for live shows because if the power is a bit funky on stage, it means that your laptop will just carry on going. But the downside of that is if your power supply falls out, you're not necessarily going to know about that until your laptop runs out of battery halfway through the show. So it's a good idea to make sure it's physically plugged in and charging before you start. Number 2, make sure that your Wi-Fi is turned off. This should stop anything from trying to auto-update in the middle of your show, but it's also a good idea to turn all those auto-updates off anyway. I find that once you've got a good stable system running, it's a good idea not to update any of the software unless you really need to, and then if you do really need to, make sure you've got like a good week before your next gig to test it out and make sure that everything works before you take it to the next gig. Number 3. Make sure that the energy saver settings are set up so that the screensaver never comes on and the computer will never go to sleep, even if it's been inactive for a while. On a Mac, you can do this by going to the settings menu, battery, low power mode, and set this to never, and then go to screensaver, lock screen settings, start screensaver when inactive and set this to never. And I would also do these 2 settings, turn display off on power adapter when inactive, never, and turn display off when on battery to never. Number 4, turn off all notifications. If Wi-Fi is turned off, you shouldn't get any notifications, but you might get something that says, this app is trying to send you a notification because your Wi-Fi is turned off. So I usually find it a good idea to just turn all the notifications off anyway. I usually set up a schedule so that my do not disturb is basically on all day. Number 5, make sure that you've got plenty of hard drive space. If you click on your hard drive and on a Mac type Command I, it opens an information window that tells you how much space you've got available on your hard drive. And it's always a good idea to have at least 20% available. Number 6, make sure that your laptop can't get too hot. The only time I ever had a laptop actually shut down on me in the middle of a show was because it was overheating. Now this was about 15 years ago, so the technology's changed quite a bit now, but this particular laptop had spinning hard drives and fans that were trying to keep everything cool, and the way that it was sitting meant that the fans couldn't suck in air to keep the drives and the CPU cold enough, and so eventually the laptop just gave up and shut down. All I did was lift it up half an inch, which meant that the air could come in, and then it was fine after that. But even with modern laptops, I'd suggest just making sure that there's enough ventilation and space around it so that air can get into whatever vents there are. Number 7, make sure you've got a backup. This one is key. If you've got a backup for your system, I reckon nothing will ever go wrong. The only time that something won't boot up is if you don't have a backup. So I always try to have a bootable external drive that I know all my programs are installed on and any authorizations are on there. Authorizations can be a bit of a tricky one because if they're actually authorized to your computer, sometimes if you have a computer problem, it can take the authorizations with it. Now I know that some people are not a fan of external dongles like iLocks, but I actually kind of like them for this reason. If you do have to rebuild your computer in an emergency situation, just having a physical iLock or something similar that all your authorizations live on mean you can just plug that in and you'll be good to go. Number 8. Make sure that all of your Midi controllers are plugged in and working. It's always a good idea to do this before every show, particularly if you've got multiple Midi keyboards and mappable controllers. Number 9, make sure that your laptop is sitting on something solid. Where to put a laptop in a live show can be a bit of a tricky one. Some people like to attach it to their actual Midi keyboard. Personally, I'm not really a fan of this just because it means it can wobble around a lot as you're playing. I like to have it on a separate stand, sometimes a speaker stand or a kind of bespoke stand that can bolt onto a keyboard stand. The only thing I'd say not to put it on is a music stand folded flat. I did this once and halfway through the gig, the music stand collapsed and so my laptop collapsed with it. Luckily, everything carried on working, but I never did that again. In Stagebox, when you go into the perform mode, it opens up a pre-performance checklist which you can customize for yourself, and it's just a reminder to check some of these things before you actually do your gig. If you don't want to see this every time you go into perform mode, you can just click the little checkbox and that will make it disappear. So, I hope you found that useful. Happy music making, and I'll see you in the next video.